Well, welcome everyone. We're going to be talking a little bit about turning down the heat and alkalizing. So this is kind of like a fun opportunity for me because Deborah and I love to do these events together. So we call it the Laurel, Deborah, or the Lucy and Ethel show. That's how we coined ourselves. But so we're going to be going over a bunch of things in the beginning. I'm going to be talking with the PowerPoint on some different tips for alkalizing in foods. Hopefully everybody got the sheets back there that were the recipes as well as the anti-inflammatory diet, and we'll talk about the pH and whatnot. And then after that, we will have the lovely sampling and demoing of the different recipes from Deborah, okay? So I am Laurel Sterling, for those of you who don't know, the registered dietitian here, and I not only do events like this, but I also talk about community and have a free service that we offer to the store where you can meet with me one-on-one, and we can go over different concerns that you may have. And people certainly take the opportunity after events like this when they have more questions. So even if it's just questions you need to talk to me further about that you couldn't hear. So how I run this typically is I will lecture throughout and just raise your hand or let me know if you have a question, because it's harder to get back to the slides to remember. And if you need me to slow down, if you want to write some things down, just to let me know that as well, okay? All right, so we'll get started. Oh, wrong one again. Okay. Is that okay for writing for everybody? Leaving the back one on there? Okay. All right. Okay, so we just did a talk, and I know some of you were at the last one about balancing fire, and we're kind of, this is on the heels of that because we had people ask us on some of the different events, because you can let us know as far as suggestions what topics you'd like to hear in the community room, and we do listen to you. And this was one where people came up to us and said, well, it would be great if we learned how to do the acid-alkaline balancing and actually putting it into foods in a day, what a day would look like. And I have a lot of clients that I recommend off of the chart and tell them how to use it. And Deborah said, well, she had been for herself, and you can tell your own story as far as inflammation, but she had been following an alkaline diet, and she had tremendous benefits with pain. So she will talk to you more about that. So what is inflammation? Inflammation definitely is something that we need. It's something that our body uses as a natural process to help out with fighting some kind of infection, or if it's an emergency situation. But it's typically local heat, redness, and swelling. So inflammation also is known as an infection, also is arthritis, because this is your long-term inflammation that's left unchecked. So it will also lead to other health conditions like cancer, heart disease, diabetes. A lot of autoimmune diseases start to creep up as well. Ulcerative colitis and Crohn's, skin conditions which are also considered autoimmune, psoriasis and eczema, and then also things like Alzheimer's, which is the brain is inflamed. Typically, we know through Chinese medicine that your gut is considered your second brain because a lot of your neurotransmitters and the majority of serotonin is made in your gut. So that is affecting the brain. So it's not only plaquing, but they also have termed Alzheimer's as diabetes of the brain, okay, or they're called the second diabetes. So it's sugar. Sugar is very inflammatory, as you'll see throughout these slides. So what are causes of inflammation? Chronic inflammation definitely begins at the cellular level. And it actually was interesting. We brought in some great new homeopathic remedies that are actually made from the buds of different flowers and whatnot, and they get to the cellular level more efficiently. So it's interesting how we will work typically with someone. They say start with detoxifying the kidneys and the liver first to go through a bottle of that, and then you move into the other formulas for whatever you're looking for. Because unless those are going and detoxing appropriately, then things are going to get stagnant and backlogged in the body. So get those moving first. So many factors can produce the free radicals, such as smoking, pollution, acidic foods, foods high in sugar or saturated fat, and also stress. So I'll be talking about stress at the very end and what we can do with stress. So combining these things with diet, lifestyle, and also you can add in supplements, we can reduce the damage caused by inflammation. Other contributors of inflammation as well are being overweight, because that also puts extra weight on the joints and more pain and pressure. Also diet, which I'll be getting into a lot throughout the rest of this. The types of fats, like trans fats, corn, soy, canola, and others. Food allergies too, because that your body is overreacting to the food, so it's attacking itself because the protein molecule has left the gut lumen and it started to migrate out into the body, and so the body sees it as a foreign object and it attacks it and starts causing this tumble-down effect of more inflammation. So we have to heal up the gut lining, and hopefully, sometimes that takes anywhere from 4 to 6 months. Heal it up, decrease the inflammatory foods that are causing issues, and then possibly those won't be such an issue later on down the line. So things that we know that people are typically allergic to, dairy, citrus, refined sugars is not allergic to, but this causes more havoc in the body. And nightshades are typically, people react to that. Some do, some don't. Some have seen a difference with cutting nightshades out, and some have not. So, yes. And I'll be getting into that. And also, Deborah on her handouts, and I didn't get a chance to look through them, the one that was in with the recipes, I think she was going to attach, yes, there's something about the nightshades. So she will be talking more about that too, in more depth. So, and I will have a slide on that. So, are we in inflammation overload? Yes, because of all the things that we're inundated with, unfortunately. So it's the ways to figure out how to cope through this and to decrease where the inflammation is coming from. So, pro or anti. So pro-inflammatory. Now this is going to get a little more technical. Not that you have to know this stuff, but this is basically how the whole lowdown goes. Arachidonic acid, something that babies need. You'll find it in the formulas and whatnot. But honestly, when that's in foods and broken down in the body, it creates more inflammatory. So it goes more toward the LOX and the COX-2, which are the inflammatories in the body. So that sends the nucleotriene number 4, thromboxane number 2, and prostaglandin E2 specifically. Those are on the inflammatory side. So it increases blood clotting, increases pain, constricts blood vessels. Needed, again, in an emergency situation for the body to take care of itself if you're in shock and whatnot. But if it's left long-term and unchecked, then that's going to be very stressful on the body and just start breaking the body down further because it's in a constant fight or flight inflamed state. So anti-inflammatory, like your EPA, DHA, and GLA. EPA and DHA you typically find in what? Fish oils. What else would you find them in? What would be a vegetarian form? Flax oil. You find it in krill oil. Chias, yep. GLA, typically you find that in borage oil, which is great for skin issues. People that have rheumatoid arthritis, that's another one that they take high amounts of GLA. It's found in black currant seed oil, and I'm not sure what else beyond that. So that throws on the leukotriene number 5 and the prostaglandin E3 and E1, which are in the anti-inflammatory. So that improves circulation, decreases pain, and relaxes blood vessels, which is more of what we want. We want more the body to be in more of that parasympathetic state, the rest and digest, than that inflamed, stressed, sympathetic state. So this is a cascade coming down from omega-6s. And I know a lot of people will say, well, I thought omega-6s were also good. Yes. You do have omega-6s in which types of products? We named a couple of them. Chia, hemp, flax. They're also in those. So they are good. But there are certain ones that we have a predominant amount in our food supply. When you go out to eat, when you have prepackaged foods, what are the cheaper types of oils that are genetically modified that they use? Right, canola, which is one of the top GMO crops. Corn, same thing, about 93-94% of that's GMO. Soybean, again, about 90-some-odd% of that's GMO. Safflower and sunflower, again, they do have different benefits on those as well. But this is basically the cascade. breaks down into a cis-linoleic acid, into a gamma-linoleic, which is good for inflammatory, but then it's broken down into arachidonic acid, which brings out those prostaglandins and the leukotrienes that are signaling inflammation. So then we have the anti-inflammatory cascade, the omega-3, like your flax, hemp, fish, chia, broken down into alpha-linolenic acid, and then from there made into your EPA. And interestingly enough, if you're not taking DHA, your body will make the DHA from the EPA if you are ingesting EPA. From flax, there are a certain amount of people that they found genetically that don't convert enough, and you wouldn't know unless you took some specific genetic test. But they said about 13% of the population don't take flax and the EPA that's in there and convert it into the DHA because the flax doesn't have the DHA in there. So you want to make sure that you get it from another source. And I think we have some algae sources out there, Neuromins, that is the DHA, and I'm sure there's other sources as well. But that signals the prostaglandin E3, which blocks the PGE2, which is the inflammatory, and the DHA, which is very anti-inflammatory. So basically, that's just the technical end of it, how it's working in the body. So don't you want to, I typically have this in, I think, almost all my PowerPoints, feel great, wake up in the morning, getting going with a lot of energy, sleeping well, don't have pain all the time, age gracefully and healthfully. I know this is my goal right here. So alkalizing, how many of you are familiar with alkalizing or do it regularly? Just a few, like 5 or 6 maybe? Okay. Part-time, that's okay. That's better than nothing. Not to say that it's not, it's just people are here learning about it. And I've done it myself as far as checking with the pH strips, which I'll talk about. Very part-time myself, too. I look at more at the chart, but I haven't actually checked. I was going to do it this week, and then I just went out of my mind as far as checking my saliva in the morning to see, because it will give you the colors of the acidity. So the more, the lighter the color, the more towards yellowish and the yellow greens, it's more acidic. Then when you hit 7 on here, it's more of a darker green and up to blue. Well, I haven't ever had it there. So I think you really have to work pretty hard, which is why we're here talking about all the different things that you can do. So what is alkalizing? An acidic environment in your body, even mildly acidic, can cause inflammation. And it's tied into so many different health issues, like we said. Osteoporosis, all those other ones that I listed there, very linked into inflammation. So check your pH levels with the pH strips, which I just showed you, in the saliva or urine. So a little bit about what pH is. It stands for potential of hydrogen, and I just told you how if you go from 7 beyond, it's more of the alkaline, and lower is more acidic. But it gets even more specific than that. The normal pH of all the tissues and fluids are slightly alkaline over 7, except for the stomach. Optimal urine pH is between, when you're testing it, is between 6.5 and 7.5. If your average is below 6, you're way too acidic. So there's controversial information out there that I've read. I use Dr. Brown's information, Dr. Susan Brown, who will be here talking. Yes, tomorrow, thank you. And she's written a book about alkalizing as well as Better Bones, Better Body. And so in her information on one of her websites, she had said, track, I think hers had said, now I'm getting confused. I had 2 different sources. Some had said to just test it first thing in the morning with your urine. Others, okay, the other, I think that's what she had said. Others had said that you track it throughout the day and kind of average it out, which makes sense because you're going to be eating at all different times and whatnot. Oh, yeah. Okay. They would have to do saliva. That's a good point. Thank you very much. Because they do say check the first urine of the morning and the first saliva of the morning where you haven't brushed your teeth or eaten anything as well. So they had said the healthy pH of saliva tested first thing in the morning or on an empty stomach is between 6.2 and 7.2. And after a meal, it would become more alkaline, or should become more alkaline. depending on the meal that you have. So understanding a little bit about pH, I just threw some of this in because I didn't understand how they got to this. But limes, typically people look at citrus and think, wow, that's really acidic. However, they do contain strong acid 1.9 on the scales. However, they're an alkaline-forming food. Alkaline-forming meaning the condition that the food causes in the body after it's been digested. So the chart will show you, and again, they vary. I've printed out that one chart from Dr. Russell Jaffe, who worked as a doctor for Perk, who actually Susan Brown recommends Perk products as well, but she has her own spin, and they don't always all jive with the food. So just try to do as best you can with that. So how did they determine acid alkaline foods? Well, there are a couple different methods in the ways that they found the food was acid or alkaline. They looked at this ash method, which they burn the food into ashes, which would be taking the place of how your body would be digesting the food. So they take 1 liter of water added to 100 grams of the ashes to make a solution. The solution is tested to see if it's acid or alkaline. They measure the strength of the solution. Acid or alkaline is added to the solution until they cancel each other out to reach a neutral, bless you. And depending on how much was added to the solution to neutralize it will determine the strength of its acidity or alkalinity. Okay, so that's how they'll say it's a strong acid, low acid, mild acid, whatnot. They also have the calcium-phosphorus ratio. The advantage of looking at this is you can find most phosphorus and calcium contents in the foods. For instance, you can look up the composition of foods from the USDA, and it will tell you how much phosphorus or calcium would be in the foods. And those are, the calcium is more alkalizing, and the phosphorus, I believe, yes, it is the acid forming. So the disadvantage of, again, this is only approximate. It's not really more specific. Ash method is more specific. So, again, that's how they determined whether foods were acidic or alkaline. So acid-forming elements, your phosphorus, sulfur, and chlorine. So acid-forming foods. Most proteins in food combine with sulfur and many with phosphorus. When protein is metabolized, these elements remain as sulfuric acid and phosphoric acid and must then be neutralized further by ammonia, calcium, sodium, and potassium. So that's taking out alkalizing nutrients to alkalize it before they can be excreted by the kidneys. This is why high-protein foods, especially animal foods, are very acid-forming. When you look at the chart of the Russell Jaffe's chart, you will not see any grains except for a few. I think there was oat and some of the rices and oat grain, quinoa. There's just very few, like 5 grains, that are on the alkalizing side, and the rest are on the acid, as well as any animal products whatsoever, whether that came from dairy, fowl, meats, fish, whatever. That's all on the acid-forming side. So most grains, like I was saying, because they contain a lot of sulfur and phosphorus, which are acid-forming, so they are more acidic. So definitely avoid overconsumption of white vinegar. So when you look at the chart, you'll see the most acid. So that would be your white sugar would be there, alcohol would be there, soft drinks, even medications you'll see on the acid-forming side. Caffeine, coffee, medical drugs, meat, most nuts, eggs, pasteurized milk, cheeses. There's a lot more, but these are some of the higher ones. Alkaline-forming elements, calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium, and iron. Okay, and you can get these in some of the electrolyte formulas that we have out there, or if you do trace mineral drops too, you can try things like that. We're focusing on the food aspect today, but if you find that it's too difficult and you can't balance it enough that way, those are things that you can add in on top of it to help out with the alkalizing. So acid foods reduce body acids. Fruit and vegetables may contain many elements like potassium, sodium, calcium, and magnesium in their organic state. And the organic acids, when oxidized, become CO2 and water, carbon dioxide and water. And the alkaline elements, potassium, sodium, calcium, and magnesium remain, and then they neutralize the body. Okay? So add more of things like your water, mineral water, good quality mineral water, or if it's a distilled water, make sure that you definitely add back in some trace minerals to that because it distills those out when in the process. Lemon to warm water, that's also great for detoxifying the liver as well. Green tea or powders. Apple cider vinegar, I'll get into that a little bit more. Raw milk, trace minerals, miso, which is a paste that you can put into soups and other things. Ripe fruit, vegetables, bean sprouts, onions, carrots, beets, and there's obviously a lot more as well than on this list. So apple cider vinegar, which it's interesting. My mom, growing up, and some of you may have heard this before, so I apologize, but she would use vinegar, and this was white vinegar for everything, cleaning around the house. She would wash her hair in it because we had very hard well water until she would wash her hair in it. It made it very, very soft. But I just like abhor the smell of. I come in my house and I'm like, what did you just clean with the vinegar? Where is it? Because I have to just counteract the smell because I can't stand it. So for years she said to me, you know, the apple cider vinegar, the organic Bragg, she would ask me to get it for her, and I'd get it for her, and she said, you could just simply add it in, and because I don't like the smells and the vinegariness of it, she said, just add a little into some water, and she did it for me one day. She said, just try it, and I did, and of course I didn't smell it or taste it, and so every now and again she'd sneak it into the dogs' dishes because it's great for their skin and their coat, and for the cats as well. I mean, it's phenomenal stuff, it really is, and I've had people come in and just tell me anecdotally on their own that they had gotten themselves off of blood pressure meds or other issues and dealt with it with the apple cider vinegar. So there's a whole book written out there. Yes? Well, that's the thing, is it depends. When you look at the Bragg's book out here that we have, there's differences that people have used. Typically what I tell people is I'll say a teaspoon up to, you can do a tablespoon a few times a day. And I know people that have come in years ago at our old store way back at in Solve, if any of you remember that, that people were using that in combination with honey to help out with keeping arthritis pain at bay as well. So again, it's so great when you read the book, it just like is great for everything. You have to make sure that you get the mother on the bottom, which is the enzymes from there. It's the cobweb-like substance at the very bottom. You just shake it up and then just pour it out. Not that I know of, because it is it's like a fermented, so it's very antibiotic, antiviral, antifungal, antiseptic. The cool thing is when I was reading about it, research supported that Hippocrates, the father of medicine, treated his patients with apple cider vinegar in 400 BC. And it just also went way back to it was used by the Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans. Julius Caesar's army used it for health properties. So the organic, unfiltered with the, probably not. No, this is like the good, yeah. Usually it's the Bragg's that we have out there is the one that I recommend for people. I think that's the only one that we have out there, actually. Do they? Okay. Christopher Columbus used it, Civil War soldiers, Japanese samurai warriors used it for health purposes. It's loaded with potassium, phosphorus, sodium, magnesium, sulfur, iron, copper, fluoride. These are all naturally occurring. Silicon, trace minerals, and essential amino acids, and pectin as well. And pectin is great for absorbing radiation. For the people that were survivors of Chernobyl, they had a lot of radiation exposure. They gave them apple pectin, and it absorbed a lot of the radiation in the body. So anybody that's had a lot of exposure to radiation from whatever, going through a lot of the airports or having a lot of x-rays. I don't know. Do you know? I don't think it's anything like that. Yeah. That I can tolerate, see? You know, I don't mind the apple cider vinegar, but it's some of the. But honestly, I do need to start adding in that apple cider vinegar that we have out there. But I don't think that it's similar. I can't comment too much on that. But all these contribute to its health properties in assisting with a lot of the ailments that they talk about in the books. So definitely increase the mineral-rich foods that are rich in calcium, magnesium, and they help with inflammation. Yes. Oh, at the end I have the info. I didn't ever see. Well, that would be okay, but not to cook. I think the heating actually is going to, it's going to change the properties of that. Like at the end where it's like a little cool, or yeah, you could do that. I think that's perfectly fine. Heat it though? Okay. Okay. Awesome. Oh yes, a lot of people use it as salad dressing. Thank you. Like she was saying here, people will make it. You mix it with the olive oil. So there you can make your own. So you could make up your own with some oil and some other seasonings and make your own. That's a great, easy way to get it in, though. Some other mineral-rich foods are also alkaline and high in antioxidants, which we said those help keep your free radicals at bay or quench them. Almonds, kale, parsley, lentils as well. Foods that would inhibit mineral absorption. So this is where we get into some of the nightshades. Yes. Right. It was about a it was like an 8 ounce or so, and she put in about a teaspoon, and I didn't taste it. No, I didn't smell it nor taste it. So solanine is a calcium inhibitor, right? And so calcium is very alkalizing. So we don't want to inhibit things like this. So that's where the nightshades become an issue with people with inflammation, arthritis. Those include your potatoes, bell peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, and others. And again, Deborah has more on that sheet than I've listed here, so make sure that you've grabbed those sheets. Oxalic acid, this is another one. It's a calcium inhibitor. This really isn't such an issue. It's more so for those that have oxalic acid stones, kidney stone issues. And I only put a few. There's a whole list where I have low, medium, and high oxalic acid foods. Rhubarb, cranberries, plums, spinach. Again, everything in moderation. That's the thing. If you're eating those day after day after day with high oxalic acid foods all together, you really need to kind of alter it. It does create more of the acidic on that aspect of it because it's pulling the minerals out of the bones, teeth, areas where it's supposed to mineralize, and so it's trying to alkalize the blood to make it less acidic. So it does then lead into creating osteoporosis issues. Possibly that probably would be a good idea to help out with it to get in there and absorbed. And as we all know, hopefully, that calcium doesn't just get absorbed on its own. Like they had the studies where they were having women just take a lot of calcium and it was actually lodging in the soft tissues, not going into the bones because it didn't have D and K and magnesium and other things to help get into the bones. Right. Right. I haven't heard as far as the oxalic acid part of it. So it may, but I haven't heard that. Usually they'll say try to have things more like kale and others that are lower in the oxalates instead of just having, if you were doing smoothies every day with tons of spinach and then had a salad later on with spinach, you just want to minimize that and not have. There are goitrogens that they find in certain things like your the cruciferous vegetables where cooking they found inactivates that. So that's people with thyroid issues, but I'm not sure about with the oxalic acid. Also limit your caffeine and sugar. As we know, these are very, 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 very very acidic, on the most acidic side. So they inhibit the mineral absorption due to the increased acidity. As we've already said, antioxidants are very important for the free radicals in the aspect of inflammation. They're responsible for preventing the oxidative stress. They help prevent the body's cells from rusting, in a sense. So the cruciferous vegetables are an example of that, like your broccoli, kale, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. Fruits, these are just, again, a few that are very high in antioxidants, and they're alkaline as well. Watermelon, grapefruit, mangoes. Grapefruit, again, you have to be careful with any different medications. There are certain ones. Mangoes, melons, grapes, kiwi, blueberries, apples, and there's a lot more as well. Grains, again, I mentioned on there, and I try to pick the gluten-free ones, and the ones that are on the alkaline side are all gluten-free as well. Quinoa, wild rice, steel-cut oats, and there's also green coffee and something else on there. Herbs, also high in antioxidants: ginger, turmeric, parsley, cayenne, rosemary. So we know ginger, turmeric, cayenne, typically very, very anti-inflammatory in a lot of the products that we have out there. Parsley is great for a number of things, and rosemary is very helpful for the liver to help detoxify, in addition to being beneficial for a lot of other things as well. Yes? Right. 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 I think that probably ask Deborah more on that, how to get that in, because I haven't really cooked with it unless. So then it'll all be just or grind it, yeah. Others, really, it's like straw. But very good for you. They do actually put it in a lot of the supplements that we have because it's higher in E, and it also has a protectant property for a lot of the oils as well to keep them from going rancid. So they'll put that in there. Right. Yes, that's another one too. Definitely. Yep. And the turmeric, remember that one in particular that I know of, as I talked about in the last lecture, that it needs to have fat in with it. So if you have a meal where you're putting turmeric in there, that you need to make sure that it's got some fat properties with that, because otherwise it doesn't absorb into the cells by itself very well. No, not that I know of, but that one in particular. With pepper, with the black pepper, right? That's what, yeah. A lot of the supplements will put in this black pepper extract in there to help pull it in too. So that would be, thank you. And that's great. They will have it in there bound with something to help it get into the cells. Usually it's a fat soluble or the black pepper extract. Also, green tea has a lot of powerful antioxidants. Also, we know that that's used in a lot of anti-cancer protocols as well, and just phenomenal for the liver and a lot of other issues that it helps with. Also, acai, goji, mangosteen, noni, there's a combination of those out there. You can get the drinks if you like, though there's combination pills. They're now putting them in a lot of the greens powders. If you like those, instead of making up your own, you can just put that's already made out here and dehydrate it at low temperature so it doesn't degrade the benefits of the wheatgrass and the other antioxidants in there. You just put those into water or into your juice or smoothie, however you like to do it. Alkalizing juices, for those of you who do juice: wheatgrass, very, very alkalizing across the board, kale, beet, cilantro, which probably if you've heard me lecture, you know how much I love cilantro. I love cilantro. Either people love it or hate it. And cilantro is phenomenal for binding heavy metals in the body. So celery, cucumber, lemon, lime, pineapple, pears, apples, very great for alkalizing the body. We know water, huge, like I was saying before. Our body's made of 70% mineral water, so this also helps detoxify the cells. So if your cells have more fluid outside the cells than inside, where there's edema issues, and you may not see edema, but typically there's a dehydration of the cells, then fluids can't go in and out appropriately. So we need to have enough hydration. It also helps prevent muscle joint pain, bloating, constipation, helps with headache prevention, and your skin turgor too. So if you know there's areas where you can lift it up and it doesn't go right down right away, then there's dehydration. All right, and I did say that stress is a very big piece of inflammation. They found that stress-related issues account for 90% of doctors' visits per year. Again, you know, with blood pressure, cholesterol, so many different diseases you can go back to, anxiety, all these different things can go back to stress issues. So where do we get our stressors coming from? All sorts of places bombarding us throughout the day. And it depends on how we deal with it, because we're all going to have stress of some sort. It's just whether we can come back to center, find more resilience to get through it. So some people internalize their stress, and it would come out in a headache, a chronic migraine sufferer, and it might be attributed to that, or a backache, or some people with irritable bowel. I typically have to say, is irritable bowel due to the foods you're eating, or do you notice it more with stressors? I had a boy in from high school, and he had all sorts of these really bad gas and pains, and he went through 2 years of testing, and they couldn't figure out what it was, and I got him on a gluten-free, dairy-free diet, and then on top of that, he noticed that whenever he was getting ready for a race, it wasn't really his exams at school because he was pretty confident there, but when it was races and other things, he would just, it all went right to his bowels. So we had him on some magnesium because they were also finding blockages in there, so that helped move his bowels and deal with stress. So, and he came back and he said, "I'm good," and I said, "Great." So that was a great day when he came in and he had a big smile on his face. I said, "Oh man, that's just, you know, what I'm here for," is when he walks out there with a smile. And when I hear that the doctors couldn't figure out what it was, you know, that was really so. What's happening in the stress cascade? The hypothalamus. Did you have a question? Mm-hmm. Well, it depends. I take mine whenever. I usually take it around bedtime as my first dose. If I don't get in my other one, that's my main one because it helps with relaxing and calming the brain and going to sleep. But I've taken it on an empty stomach several times. Some people, though, I've found cannot tolerate it. So it's dependent on person to person and how it would affect them. So the hypothalamus signals the pituitary in the brain, which increases its production of the adrenocorticotropic hormone, which for short is ACTH. That signals the adrenals to release the stress hormone cortisol and cortisone, which again, as I went back to, fight or flight. When your body is in a state of stress, it doesn't know whether it's good stress, happy stress, bad stress, where it's coming from. It's just in this inflamed stress point. And that's okay. You need it for survival or whatever you're dealing with to get through for that time period. However, if it is for a long period of time, because of what it does is it inhibits the white blood cells, it suppresses your immune system. This entire process initiates a pro-inflammatory cascade. So it responds, the body triggers the body to excrete more amino acids, more minerals, which we were saying are very alkalizing, and more electrolytes, which are alkalizing. So the body becomes more deficient than it can actually keep up with. And typically, as I say, do people eat well when they're stressed? No. We go for something on the fly. We grab whatever's going to make us feel good to get through it. And, you know, I understand. But, and do we typically take our supplements at those times? Or do those get just like put to the side and we just kind of put our head down and go forward and do what we can? Well, then you find you end up getting sicker more easily. Also, the thing about sugar, too, is I should point out here, the Mayo Clinic found that when they gave people sugar, their immune system was depressed for a full 2 hours after that. So it just brings it all down. So the three phases of stress, the alarm, acute, and the chronic. The alarm is that initial where, you know, in this type of weather, if you start slipping and sliding and think you're going to hit someone and you regain control and everything's okay, everything calms down. But if it's something where it's a constant, like you're studying for an exam or you're helping an elderly parent or friend that may be very, very sick, that stress persists for a long period of time. Your adrenals adapt and try to help you by increasing its output, and they get larger. But they also then get to a point where they can't do that anymore, and they have nothing left to pull from the body because they pull all the minerals and everything that they need to keep yourself going, keep going, keep going. Well, finally, you hit the wall. This is typically where chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, anxiety, depression, not sleeping well, blood pressure's up, all these kinds of things typically is the end point here. So we want to avoid before we get to that point. As far as vitamins and minerals, we know that we're living in a more toxic environment than our grandparents 100 years ago or so. There's a lot more toxins and stress, a lot more toxins released every year. The soil's not being rotated, so the crops aren't as, and the products that we're yielding from the crops are not as full of the nutrients anymore. They're actually doing tests on that and seeing it because the soils are being stripped of the same nutrients and not repleted with enough other than the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So also the fact that we're having a more diets, I know not probably you guys, but standard American diet is loaded with refined, processed, pesticide-laden foods. So we're not getting the nutrients we need, and we're having a lot of stress, so it's a lot of output, not enough input. So we're really not getting enough of the nutrients that we need. So we need more of those minerals to help to detoxify and help out with the antioxidants. So a good multivitamin mineral would be a good cover. Or if someone is really eating very healthy, if you're juicing and eating raw, you may not need something like this. But if you aren't, then that would be a nice cover. So supplements for stress, and I love that one because the computers, you're just like, argh. So, you know, like I said, a high-quality multivitamin to start with, and then your B vitamins. You use up a tremendous amount of B vitamins, which are water-soluble. So when you're stressed, in just something very quick, like I said, if your car gets out of control, you can use up a tremendous amount of B vitamins right there. And they're either used by the body or excreted through the urine or out through perspiration and whatnot. So you need to replete those. So you would get it in the morning with your multi, and then you would have another bit of it in the afternoon. I would say probably not go past 3 o'clock or so, because some people will react to them where they have a lot more energy. And if you go to bed earlier, you don't want to take it closer to the bedtime, because that will keep you up. I have had some people say that they were recommended to take their multi at night, and I said, wow, I never would do that. Minerals are best at night, but I wouldn't have anything that would be B vitamins, especially if you have an issue with sleeping. Nothing like that closer to bedtime. So other essential ones for stress that use up a lot of magnesium, which I talked a bit about. I did a whole lecture on this last year, and this is so crucial. It's used for over 325 enzymes in the body. So it's so needed, but we are so depleted of it because we don't get it from the foods enough, and the body uses it up for everything. I personally use it, and I've been away from it for probably a couple of months, and my telltale of when I really need it is I start getting eye twitches, and I started getting them the past few days, and I thought, all right, well, one was coming a little bit, and then all of a sudden the other eye, and I said, okay. So I took some last night, and that really helps me as well as for sleep and stress. Like, yeah, 5. Sorry. Okay, so it usually goes by 150 pounds body weight for an adult. And also, the thing with magnesium is, most of you know that take it, it's person to person, because if you are one who has regular bowel movements, you have to be very careful. But if you don't, it is something that will help relax all smooth muscles being also the bowels. So it will help you go more often. So everybody starts out, I usually start out, depending on if you're going daily, I would say, all right, we'll start at maybe 300 milligrams at night. If someone's going every other day, I'd start out right there with 600 milligrams in divided doses. So it depends on each person's, what's going on and what else they're taking and that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of magnesium-rich foods like avocados and nuts and black beans, but they may not have higher amounts of it depending on, again, where they're grown and whatnot. Vitamin C, your body uses up a voracious amount of this for the adrenals, and this time of year definitely is needed, so you could take upwards to 2 grams or so a day. Other options after that, because I start with the basic vitamins and minerals, if there are more issues and those aren't helping with what I start out with, then I would look at theanine possibly. That is an amino acid found in green tea, which helps out with the alpha, theta waves in the brain to help with more of a calming, relaxing, to help get into more of a sleep state as well. I don't think so, because typically we recommend that what would be helpful is at night if you had decaf green tea along with the theanine, that helps even more so. So the phosphatidylserine is another that is a natural phospholipid found in our cell membrane. That's one of the things that the turmeric is bound to help get into the cells more efficiently. It protects against stress and decreases cortisol levels. Now, I didn't have any idea that this helped out with cortisol until I had a doctor come in I had a person come in that had a script from a doctor to have a certain amount of milligrams of phosphatidylserine. And I said, really? And she said, yes, for stress and decreasing cortisol. And so I looked at the bottle, and sure enough, it said right on there. And I had never seen that before, so that was new to me. Adaptogens, these are what your body will adapt to. Again, if the hormones are running too low for progesterone or estrogen or testosterone, it will raise it. Or if it's running too high, it will lower it. So these are great balancers. Usually you'll find them in adrenal formulas in combinations, but we also have them on individuals. Ashwagandha, which I think is a phenomenal herb, and holy basil, those are two that I use. Holy basil more so for a lot of clients, and they've seen a huge difference. Holy basil also comes in Tulsi tea. It is Tulsi tea, so some people just start out adding in the Tulsi tea itself. Yes, it doesn't have to be in the long term. Yep. And yes. Gaia herbs should have that. They don't? Oh. Oh, you should. Have you asked? What's that? Oh, I don't know about Young Livings. Did you ask out here? Yeah, I don't know if they carry. Did you ever ask out here as well for them to search through all the stuff that we have, because they can see? Oh. Right. Right. But it doesn't have licorice. Oh. No, I haven't. Sorry. Yeah. The best they would be up on that for sure. The Relora, that's a great one for those who are stress eaters as well as stress. They found in studies that if you're a stress eater, that taking this decreased the amount of stress eating. So it's a blend of magnolia and philodendron. And passion flower, this is a sedative like the GABA, and it helps with nervousness and insomnia. Others, foxflower remedies, the rescue remedy out there, essential oils like lavender and frankincense. And stress reduction, we know how important that is. It's very alkalizing in the body. Going for a walk, listening to music, meditation, prayers, deep breathing, gratitude lists, all these things I think are phenomenal. I think the gratitude list, again, is one of the bigger ones for myself as well as exercise. Those are the two I've noticed the most, as well as prayer. But meditation is something that helps, but I haven't gotten it quite into my regime yet. So I have to work on that one a little bit more. Lifestyle exercise, we know that that's very important to get in. You can make it fun in a lot of different ways. And then your regular exercise, again, a combination of stretching, strength training, cardiovascular. Don't go overboard, because if you do, that can become very acidic on the body as well. And other things that can help: chiropractic, massage, tai chi, acupressure, acupuncture, reflexology. And we know sleep is huge as to help with alkalizing the body and regenerating the cells and tissues. The National Institute of Health reported that 50 to 70 million Americans are affected by some sort of sleep disorder. So typically, you know, if you don't sleep well, you don't feel well, right? And so a lot of sleep disorders are linked to chronic diseases such as hypertension, heart disease, stroke, depression, diabetes, and a lot of others. So there are a lot of different sleep aids. One of the first ones I start with would be magnesium. GABA-Calm is an interesting one. Again, I would check if you have certain medications. That one goes underneath the tongue. It's a sublingual. It helps to calm the mind down, the neurotransmitters in the brain to just quiet down if you're one of those who goes to bed and you've got chattering going on in your head. The others are related to sleep or stress. The Sound Sleep has a lot of things in there for stress, as well as Sleep Tonight and the Revitalizing Sleep Formula, and the Tranquil Sleep as well. So some people use melatonin. Again, it varies person to person. This is some of the information I use. So you were asking about the book. It's the Apple Cider Vinegar Miracle Health System by Bragg's that we have out here. Others that I went to was the Better Bones site and some Enzymatica information that we had. And I also looked at Dr. Russell Jaffe's information and a book called Acid Alkaline. That's where I got a lot of the information about how they found out what foods were pH and how they used certain methods. And I can put that back up if you like, or I'm just going to do others that you can look into: the pH Miracle, Alkalize or Die. Sorry, I ran over Deborah. Yes, it is. Yep. So live life in a way that improves your health. This is my information. I do have my cards back there as well, with my number and email. Does anybody need me to put back up the books at all? This one, Alkalizing, Turning Down the Heat. Yeah. Yes. Mhm. Last week's? No. Yes, it was two. It was just the same one, from the morning and the afternoon and the evening. Is that what you're thinking of? Mhm. Oh no. Oh. Right. This one is more on the foods. I didn't too much into the foods. We talked about certain supplements and a little bit on stress, and just about inflammation in general is linked in with Dr. Andrew Weil. So there were some videos that were throughout that he talked about with. It was just very general. And then this one is more specific on how to live it more with the foods. Okay, so it was kind of like a tag along to this, to the last one. Right. Okay, eyes. No? Oh, there we go. Okay. Now, any questions that you had for Deborah's cooking that would be directed towards her?
Cranberry juice is the first thing, and I saw cranberries were on the write-up. Is it different in different things?
It's just, this is an unsweetened cranberry juice, but it's a recommended anti-inflammatory smoothie, and I think it's because of the way the ingredients interact with one another in the recipe.
So it's not just the one. Right. Because you can't typically, I didn't explain the charts too, I'm sorry about that. Usually what happens with the chart, if you pull that out, is on the right-hand side is the more acidic foods, and we usually say to pick one from that side and then 3 to the other side to offset it, and you can do that for every meal. Yes, that one right there. So you would pick one thing from the right side and 3 to the left to offset it, and that's where Deborah's going to talk more about how to combine that into what a day would look like for more alkalizing.
I don't think I need this actually. Oh, he will. Hello. I have to apologize. I have a head cold, which the universe just happened to give me this morning, so I could come in here and do this talk. But anyway, I'm coming at the whole anti-inflammatory dilemma from a very personal point of view, because I injured my back about 5 years ago and I've been battling chronic pain. And my polarity therapist suggested that I try an anti-inflammatory diet, and I've had some success. It's not, it's not a miracle cure, but I've had success in reducing pain and inflammation by following the diet. And the general guidelines are, Laurel just said it, but the more raw and the more vegetarian or vegan you can go in your diet, the more success you're going to have if you're going to use it as a pain management tool. So it's usually like 1/3 to 2/3. So 1/3 acidic foods to 2/3 of the alkaline foods, and some people even say 75% if you really want to get down and dirty with it. 75% alkaline and 25% acid. So I've been trying to follow this, and as I said, I've had a fair amount of success with it. Also, a nice little side effect is that you lose weight on the diet because it comes off pretty fast, and it's kind of painless because I'm never hungry on this diet. It's just a matter of what you're picking to eat. So what I set up for us today is just a breakfast option. So I did a smoothie for breakfast, a salad for lunch, and then I did a pumpkin soup for like a dinner. Of course, you might want to eat more than that, but this is just one way of going for a soup for dinner. The sad thing about the alkaline diet is that you're not supposed to eat bread or any kind of wheat, so you have to get used to not eating that side of bread with all the soups. But I'm going to just, yes. Yeah, the gluten-free stuff. I think the gluten-free is better. This is not exact science. You really have to test how things affect you personally. Like some people have tolerance for brown rice, other people can't do it. Some people are agitated by even things that are said to be alkaline. You just really have to kind of pay attention to what you're putting in your system and how you're reacting to it. But it's this is just a basic guideline. I'm by no means an expert on this. I just know that from the point of view of what I'm trying to do for myself, what I've had success with. So. And I do the trace minerals myself, so hang on, I just want to grab the recipes. So one of the things that I gave you in the with the handouts is this. I came across this information and I thought it was very helpful because nightshades, which I love to eat, are tomatoes and peppers and eggplant, things like that, are very They cause a lot of inflammation. They're irritants to the body. So this is a little bit of information on what you can do to substitute those things in your recipes, and I think that helped me out a lot. So the first recipe is this cranberry juice cut with coconut water. So that's where you're cutting out a little bit of that acidity from the cranberry juice it's a 50-50 with coconut water, which is alkalizing, and honey to taste, which is a food that we're allowed to eat on an alkaline diet. A little turmeric, anti-inflammatory, cinnamon, anti-inflammatory, chia seeds are great for this stuff, and banana. So I'm going to just sample these out for you guys. We could do actually sample out all three of them, and people can come up and pick them out. Just that's okay. Let's toss this up. Yeah, they do. And if it's an issue for you, you can always buy the ground chia, or you can grind them yourself and just use the powder. That's also a very viable option. Uh-huh.
Is that kale or parsley?
It's kale.
So did you have to soak it overnight?
You know, we didn't. I find that with the kale, as long as you cut it in rather small pieces, it can be easily digested by the system. Some people massage it, some people soak it. We serve it in our salads just like it is, just like that. Because this sat a little while, the chia has already thickened it up. Yeah. Yeah. So the salad that I made today is just kale with shredded beets and carrots, celery, and our homemade dressing. Homemade dressing, which is a balsamic-based dressing. You can easily do a apple cider vinegar dressing if you prefer that. You know, we do the balsamic for the taste of it, and there's also apple cider vinegar in that recipe, so it's not all balsamic. So again, it's all about balancing things out and not going over that 1/3 acidic. Yeah. Yeah, it's cut in half with it's equal parts coconut.